A buddy of mine texted me the other day and said that he needed to do fork seals for his Honda Grom, but he went looking on YouTube and didn't find any good videos that were a good walkthrough of the process, so he wasn't confident enough to do it. So he brought me his forks and said, make me a video so next time I can do it myself. Hopefully, I'm gonna make all the steps easy for you to follow, but let's go change the fork seals on a 2018 Honda Grom. There's really only a few things that you need when doing the fork seals for a Grom. Obviously, you're gonna need oil and the seals. What I'm doing is I'm going to be increasing the viscosity of the oil to make it a heavier weight. That should help with any of the diving that happens when you hit the brakes. A couple adjustable wrenches, flathead screwdriver, electrical tape. I'll show you that one in a little bit to protect the seals. And then I'm gonna make a fork seal driver out of a piece of 1-inch PVC pipe. You can buy a fork seal driver, you can buy some tools on Amazon, but this is something I had in the garage. I'm gonna see if I can make it work. I've done it in the past, but I've not done it on Grom ones, so we'll see if it works. And then the manual, if you have it, just to get specifications. I'm gonna try my best to follow the steps in here so that you don't necessarily need to have this. I'll talk about the amounts that I put in, the measurements, the things that I use. So I'll follow these instructions and hopefully that'll help you guys through the process. First and foremost, try your best to loosen the fork caps before you take the forks off the bike. The triple clamps will help hold the forks in place so you can loosen that. There is a good bit of force on them, so you might not be able to hold it with your hands and turn the fork caps. So just break it loose, get it easy, and that way it'll come apart easier. Now, obviously I am starting with the forks off of the bike, but when you take the forks off, you need to remove the wheel, the front fender, and the brake. But hopefully if you're doing fork seals, you can get the forks off yourself. I already broke these loose using the adjustable wrench. It is a 35mm top bolt, so if you have a socket that's 35, that's the best bet, but you can loosen them with an adjustable wrench. And then, once you break it loose, you should be able to just spin it freely by hand. On the fork cap, there's a little nut on the bottom. You need to loosen that lock nut so that you can spin the fork cap off by itself, off the main damping rod. And when that comes off, you can take off the shim and the lock nut. Now with the fork cap off, we can drain the fluid out into the oil catch can. Assuming there is oil. Oh, there's a little bit. So when my buddy brought me these, he said, the seal's been leaking for a while. I don't know how much oil there is actually in them. It looks like about an ounce or so. So he probably had a pretty rough ride. When you're draining it, you do want to pump the fork to let the oil come through as easily as possible. Man, this fork almost feels like it's bound up on something. It's a good idea to prop it up against something so it can continually drain out. While that's draining, I'm going to take the cap off the other one. This one's completely empty. This is how the fork should move though. Like, it should be nice and smooth. This one does not do that. I think there's something wrong with this one. When we take it apart, we'll figure out what that might be. It might have something to do with the fact that this fork has hit the ground. So this fork might not be salvageable, but we'll see when we get it apart. Now that we've drained all the fluid out, we can go ahead and take the dust seal off. Using a flathead screwdriver, carefully, and I mean carefully, put it in between the top fork tube and the seal. I'm just getting the edge in just a little bit and kind of wiggling it back and forth so that I'm not putting too much pressure in one spot. But as the opening gets larger, you can turn it more. Now the dust seal is off. Inside where the fork seal is, there is a little circlip. You can use a screwdriver to pull the circlip out as well. Again, be super careful. There is a little piece that kind of sticks out with a lip on it. Stick your screwdriver in that lip, pull up. See how there's a little dent? So I can get that on camera. There's a little dent. You can stick your screwdriver in that dent and pull it out. The next step is just use it like a slide hammer, basically, and make a quick couple jabs apart. And out pops the seal. Now, I didn't let it drain long enough, obviously, which is why it is making a big mess. So the longer you let it drain, the better it is. Let me grab some paper towels, clean this up. Alright, now that we've got this cleaned up, we can take off these bushings. You'll see that there's a little bit of a gap in the bushings. You can use the flat blade screwdriver, spread those apart, and pull them this way. You don't want to go down. You don't want to pull them off the tube. You want to go away from the tube. Keep track of the order too. I like to stack things out so I know which order they go in. And that way when I put it back together, I can just go 1, 2, 3, 4, stack them all back on. Alright, old fork seal coming off next. And now we can take off that retainer clip that I mentioned before and the old dust seal. Now we want to clean this as best as we can. From top to bottom, get off all the old oil, all the dirt. Use some brake cleaner if you've got some. We do not want this to be dirty or scratched in any way. While we're cleaning these, we want to look at the bushings too to see if they still have the Teflon coating on them, if they need to be replaced. On these little Groms, I don't anticipate these needing to be replaced too often. But on the inside of this one that has the two colors, you want to see, is it silver or is it like a copper color? If it's a copper color, then you should replace it. This one still has the coating on it. It looks like it's okay. This one is all one color. Just want to make sure it's not cracked, not chipped, bent or damaged. This one looks okay too. With the seals and bushings off, you can see there's these ridges right here. Those ridges can be very sharp, so when putting the new seals on, we need to protect the seals from these ridges. That's where the electrical tape comes in. This just creates a smooth surface so that the seals don't get cut as they go over these. And electrical tape is fairly thin. We can just do one layer or so to make sure that the ridges are smoothed off. Cool. That shouldn't cut the seals now. When doing fork seals, it's always a good idea to make sure you know which direction the main seal goes when you're reinstalling it. The kit that we got is from All Balls Racing. On the packing, there's a nice little reminder of which direction the seal goes. This is awesome to see. I like it when the manufacturers know that there's a problem with people remembering which direction it goes, so this is very helpful to see. For reassembly, we're going to go in reverse order. The dust seal goes on first. It is a good idea to take some fork oil and put it on the inside of the seal to help lubricate it, and it'll help go on a lot easier. Don't need to use a lot, just a little bit to run around the edge. I want to put some on the tape too, make that a bit smoother. It looks like I've got a piece of tape stuck up. Let me try to cut that off. Alright. Try to coax the seal on. Should slide right over the tape. Then the circlip goes back on. On the seal, there's a dual lip side and a single lip side. You want to put the dual lip side towards the oil of the top tube. I'm going to do the same thing, put a little bit of fork oil on the seal, and slide it over the tape. Cool, now we can pull off the tape, put the bushings back on. In reverse order, remember? You don't need to use a screwdriver to put them back on. You can just kind of pull them apart and slide it over the tube. Cool. Now we're ready to put the fork tube back on too. Just slides it on. Upside down with it. Now, this is where the cool PVC pipe is going to come in handy. What you could do is buy a special tool called the fork seal driver that goes around the fork tube and then allows you to use this as a slide hammer to hit the fork seal back in. Not everybody needs to buy these. If you're doing just one set of fork seals, it's not a big deal. This is obviously too big for a Grom, so I can't use this one, so let's make our own. Now, you'll notice that this is not big enough to go around. So what I'm going to do is cut this in half. I have to use a knife for that or a saw for that. Hopefully I'll get this cut out pretty cleanly. That made a massive mess. That's why I stuck the paper towel into the fork tube so that that PVC shavings did not get inside of it. Gotta try to keep things clean. What we've done is create something that will hopefully go inside of the fork tube and allow me to get the seal down all the way in. Now what I'm seeing is that this piece of PVC isn't quite big enough to go around the tube. I may have to find a different way to do this then. A different type of tubing, or maybe I need to cut this into fourths. Like I said, it's been about 15 years since I've done this. Let's figure this out. I'm going to try to cut this piece in quarters. That way I can spread these out a bit more and hopefully get it around the fork tube. I'm not going to try my Dremel. Hopefully that'll make less of a mess cutting the PVC. So let's see how that goes. Let's see if that'll go around the fork tube. I think if I did 3 of those, that might work all right. So let me cut this other half in half and see what happens. Oh, that'll work nice. I think that'll work. Okay, cool. Let's clean up this little bit of a mess and try out our new invention. So now what I'm doing, got these 3 pieces. I'm holding them around the fork tube in hopes that I can push this fork seal down far enough into the main top tube. It is kind of working. There's not a lot of weight to it, like there would be a regular slide hammer or a fork seal driver, but it is working. All right, now we've got the seal in past the point of the retainer clip line. We can drop the retainer clip in. We should hear it snap in place. Once it gets past that little line, I'm going to use my flat blade screwdriver again. Hopefully we hear it. So one snap. There it was, that little pop. That means it's seated properly, and we can add the dust seal back onto the main top tube. And with that, the fork seals are replaced. We can top it off with oil. By top it off, I mean use the correct amount. I mentioned I'm using the manual for things like specifications. So the fork oil that is from the factory is a 10 weight oil. It is 221 cc's plus or minus 1.5 cc's, measured at a distance of 75 millimeters from the top of the fork tube. Let's fill it up. Keep in mind, I didn't mention this before, you have to have some type of measuring device for the oil itself. I'm using a ratio right. I've been using this for dirt bikes for years. Fantastic tool, very easy to come by. 221 is what we're shooting for. Now I've got 225 as a marker. So I'm going to go just shy of that and fill her up. You want to go slowly because we don't want bubbles in the system. See how there's bubbles in the oil right now? I want to pour it out slowly, and then I'll pump the cylinder to kind of bleed it out a little bit. Let's see, I'll hold it with my feet. Got to get the oil down in all the way. With each pump, it's sucking the oil down into the cylinder, not just the top chamber. And I'm going to keep doing this until I don't see bubbles coming up anymore. The PVC cut pieces for the fork seals kind of worked okay. Not a huge fan. If I'm ever doing Grom seals again, I will buy the correct tool. Well worth the money. When I first got them from my other bikes, it was like blowing my mind. I can't believe how easy it is. I'll put the link below for the tool that you should use for the job, but if it's the only time you need them, the PVC worked okay. Another cool tool is this Motion Pro oil level tool. Let me show you how to use it. As I mentioned from the manual, the specification said 221 cc's plus or minus 1.5 cc's. That's really hard to do on a graduated cylinder. So I poured what I think is the correct amount. You can kind of see it down there. But how this tool works is it's got numbers on this post, and I set it to 75 millimeters. I put the post down inside the fork tube, and this ring keeps it at 75 millimeters. Now I just pull the syringe, and any excess above the 75 millimeters will come through. That means I'm now at 75 millimeters. This tube is full to its capacity. It's done. Let's put the fork cap back on and call this tube a day. In reverse order, you've got the nut going on first. Then you've got the washer. And then the fork cap. So make sure the washer goes on the fork cap, not just near it. You want to seat it properly on the fork cap, and then tighten the lock washer back up against it. Let me grab some tools and I will tighten this down. There's an O-ring on the fork cap. If you cleaned it, dip your finger in some fork oil again and get it on that O-ring. That way it's nice and sealed when it goes back into the fork tube. Similar to when you took it apart, you don't necessarily need to tighten this down when it's off the bike. You can put this back into the bike and then tighten and torque the top fork cap. With that, you have changed the fork seals in your bike. It should run a lot smoother and a lot better now. If you see any seepage of oil after fact, don't worry about it. It's just the excess coming off from the seals. Wipe it clean. You should be good to go. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe. I hope to do a lot more content for you guys. If you have questions about the process, let me know below and I'll do my best to answer any questions. If you like riding on two wheels, which I assume you do, or you have friends or family that are riding on two wheels, take a look at the link below for WeRideTwo. I've got a 40% off coupon code for my hats and my shirts. It goes a long ways. It helps me support the channel, it helps me do more content, it helps me get more information out to you guys. It's all for the greater good of moto. Thanks so much. Ride safe. See you in the next one.